Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever Flywheel Podcast. Let's go. All right, and I'm really excited for this, Kiet. Like, we've been talking about doing this for so long, and now we're finally doing this. Like, how do you feel?
Man, I feel like the Frax cast is a long time coming, so I'm glad we're here
Frax
today.
Cast, but like now it's Flywheel.
Right, I know, but I'm still nostalgic. But let's get it.
Frax Cast is like the soul of Flywheel, but like, yeah, Frax Cast Flywheel. Here we are. Cheers, everyone. I'm here with Capital K, and a little bit about me. I've been in crypto for 5 years. For the past 2 years, been super into DeFi. I basically live on chain now. I've done everything from yield farming to like work with projects. I've done smart contract infrastructure, and now I'm back at stablecoins. I've known Sam since 2016. I was one of the first employees of Everpedia, which was the first company and project he founded, which became a blockchain encyclopedia. And I've found my way back to Fracks working with Sam. And yeah, Kit, like, let's get a little intro about you. Like, what's going on?
Yes. So just like Dave, I started in crypto in 2017 with the whole crazy ICO mania. We also ran a ton of miners. I flew to Canada, New York, and even Texas to place all of these miners. Did a lot of staking, master noding, and in 2020 started getting into DeFi, and summer last year was when I started looking really deeply into stablecoins. And obviously, Frax is amongst the top one that is a purely on-chain stablecoin, and that was really interesting to me. And I met Dave, where he was also a big Fraximalist, and we just kind of kicked it off. And we're like, you know what? There lacks this like community, like really concentrated core of the community for all these
Yeah,
Fraximalists. And then Dave had
yeah.
the idea to actually execute and bring us all together.
Yeah, it's funny. Me and Kit, we've met each other back in September, August, September last year. We just
Hmm.
got connected on the phone when I was working at Gelato, and it was about I think it was about our token sale
Yep.
back then. And so like, it was just like we hit it off, like, and it was just like, wait a second, you live in LA, and I was living in LA at the time too. It was just like, oh, well, this and that, and we made all these connections, and then we ended up just like seeing each other at different conferences, and like we realized how big Fraxmas we both were, and then we were just like, wait a second, like we should like start a podcast. There needs to be more media for Frax. There needs to be more education and marketing for Frax, because as we mentioned in the interview, the Frax team is just heads down shipping. There's always be shipping, always be shipping, but there needs to be people to be always be educating and always be marketing. And so like this podcast is part of a wider effort called Fraximalist to bring about more education of Frax, both in the ecosystem and outside of it, to both retail and also institutions as well. And so Fraximalist is like the wider effort, and Flywheel, this podcast, is like the one part of that. And this past podcast for the first one, Seba, like what a great guest to have on. Like came organically in for like a reason, like for a very practical reason, just wanted to find like a good interest rate. People just want to find that in the real world all the time. And then he's just got like the inner urge to be like, I want to contribute to this. And like he was kind of like pulled and like literally taught himself Dune analytics to and became like the ultimate Dune raider of Frax. It was an awesome interview. It was great hearing his perspective and like just hearing about like what he thinks of what's going on, and like what he finds promising about Frax, what he thinks Frax can work on, and like where he sees Frax going in the future.
Yeah, and I love that little secret alpha leak at the end that he gave
Oh,
everybody. So please make sure you stay to the end to kind of catch that.
yeah. Super excited for the Flywheel podcast to finally get released to the world. This is the first of many. Don't forget to follow us on socials at Flywheelpod, and then on Twitter, then Flywheelpod on Telegram. And then, we got to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Subscribe to that. Like, come show your support. Like, this will be the first of many. And, really excited for what's ahead. But yeah, everyone enjoy the show. And here we go. As our first person on the podcast, we have Seba, who is a community member that has been contributing to Frax for when did you start contributing to Frax? Like, Seba, like, can you give like a little bit of background on yourself and like what drew you to Frax in the first place?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Hey, thanks, Kiet. Great to be here. So, as a background, pretty boring stuff. I did my studies in CS with a little bit more of in depth into data science and AI, and then I began. When I first heard of Frax was because I needed to borrow some. I wanted to borrow against my ETH, and during that time every place to borrow was very expensive, like A was over 10% per year to borrow USDC or DAI, or so it was not nothing compared to the current rates. So I came up on Frax, which was borrowable at a much lower rate. It was like something between the 3 or 4%. And my question was like, how sustainable or how long is this rate going to last? Because maybe today I'm going to take a loan, and after 1 week it's going to raise to over 20%. So then I joined the Telegram Frax chat, the Telegram group, and I began as making questions. And this was around April 2021. And I was very surprised that Sam himself was the one who answered my questions. So
The boss man himself.
yeah, yeah. So uh, with his answer, I felt pretty confident that I wasn't going to get robbed in some time later. Yeah,
You're gonna be
you know.
taken care of. Dude, honestly,
Yeah.
you sound like the best advertisement for Frax. Like if like I'm like
Exactly.
not just like a degen, but just like someone looking for a loan, like in the future. I'm like I'm trying to find like the lowest rate, like obviously, like and you just came upon Frax in such an organic fashion. Like I feel like we should take a sound bit of this and just like have this out on Twitter. Like, how'd you find Frax? Well, it's the lowest rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it felt like that. So I was very impressed that Sam himself answered my questions, and I wanted to know, like, how is this possible? Is it possible for this stable coin to be available to borrow for such a low rate? So that was when I began studying. Basically, did a master's itself, just to know how to do a master itself, to know how Frax works. And I was very impressed with the all its mechanisms, all the stability it had shown, based on how novel it was, because uncollateralized stable coins was something that we hadn't seen anytime before, and I was really amazed that they worked at all. Uh, and the ability to for these coins to supply to provide such an useful products, like borrow at a low rate, was really impressive to me. So that's basically how I got stuck with Frax and ended up in the community.
Let me jump in here and ask them the very following question because everybody in the community, one time or another, have for sure went to Dune Analytics and look at this dashboard created by Seba. And now we
Oh, it's
finally got you
legendary.
on the podcast. It's literally legendary. So, like, what made you, push you to kind of build that?
Yeah. um, so I spent a lot of time on the Telegram group, answering questions mainly. So and all the questions were very pretty much repeated. Everyone was asking like the same stuff. How does this works, and how much money is it making? How much money does it have in the treasury? And that information wasn't available really at the time. And I saw all these other protocols that, like, I don't know, maybe Uniswap or Maker, or can't name other few, but they all had their Dune dashboards, and I saw that Frax had uh, basically very little information to show. So I have like this maybe impulsive trait, I'm used to just begin doing stuff without asking first, and that's something
Love it.
really yeah, yeah. That's also something that I really like about this blockchain work. You just can begin getting your hands inside whatever you want to do. So I just did that. I um, looked into how I can contribute to Frax, because I really like the project. And I wanted to build for it. I think it was a big contribution to make to the community and the protocol.
Yeah, man, it
Yeah,
absolutely was. Yeah.
dude.
I
Yeah,
just
no,
want
and
to
I
say
love how
one.
organic it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I just want to comment one thing about Seba is like the poster child of someone coming into Frax because they wanted to have, low rates, and on top of that, he just tapped right into the community and started building right away. And I wanted to ask you, how long did it take you to kind of create that whole dashboard? Because it's really comprehensive.
Yeah, so it actually I had to learn about a lot about how Dune worked, and well, mainly the main issue actually was to learn how all blockchain works, how Ethereum works, how all these other protocols work, because the thing about Frax is that it is integrated and it is using a lot of other protocols like Stake DAO and Convex, Curve, Uniswap. So when you are building information for Frax, you aren't actually building information for Frax. You are building information for all these other protocols. So that was like the most difficult thing to do, because I had to learn basically how all these other things work. And about time, I was working part time during that time during the. I mean, I wasn't working full time on the Dune dashboard, so I must have been like 2 or 3 months working before like it became known. And what was really surprising to me is that I didn't publish or didn't announce the dashboard in the Telegram, but someone else who had been looking at Dune for Frax information found the dashboard and began sharing it.
Love it.
Yeah, it must have been super rewarding to see that. Like, you didn't even try to promote it, but like, in the same way that you had the natural curiosity and drive to make the dashboard, people had the natural curiosity not only to look it up, but to share it with both like the wider community, people in it or out of the community. And like now it's like the go-to resource. Like if you go to like community.frax or like fraxmas.xyz, like the dashboard's there. It's like such like a important like pillar and like foundation to the education of the community and Frax in general.
Yeah, absolutely, it's very gratifying to see it being used, being adopted, and being uh, used as a source of information.
Yeah, and
Right.
so since you've had like a kind of like a very objective look at Frax, like what do you see being the biggest challenges to Frax in the short term? Let's say like 6 months to a year. Like where do you see like those challenges and adversity like coming up, and like how do you think Frax can overcome them?
Yeah, so I think this is a problem for all stable coins, which is basically the have some organic growth. Like currently, every major stablecoin relies on yield farming and providing liquidity farming rewards to increase their circulating supply. And well, this isn't actually a problem only for stablecoins, but every new product, every new innovation needs some incentives to begin working. And I think we are still in Frax. We are still currently at that phase with the need to supply external or like external value. for it to be used. And I think that the way to build towards being like a self-sustainable stablecoin that does not rely on the emissions. I mean, emissions aren't going to stop for a lot of time. I don't think that's a bad thing, but um, I think that to be able to continue growing beyond that point, we need to focus on building basically more integrations across our protocols. Like, for example, I think that just recently the Frax was integrated in the perpetual protocol in Optimism. So that's a huge step. I think it's also being used in GMX.
Hmm.
So we could try to focus how again, how do we make people use more Frax on GMX to become like a more established stablecoin to use there. And I also think like there hasn't been like a killer product in blockchain stablecoins. For example, all the current solutions basically offer something like yield farming or borrowing, which are functions that aren't very different to what we had before in traditional finance. But we are just making them permissionless. So I have like the optimism or the hope that someday someone is going to come up with a killer use for stablecoin, something we hadn't seen before anywhere in traditional finance or blockchain at the moment. And I think that we are yet still to see that, and I hope it comes soon.
Do you think that innovation in stablecoins is like, I mean, right now stablecoins are like mostly pegged to a dollar, but like, is that innovation something that's like a stablecoin that isn't pegged to a dollar or pegged to a external asset? It's more of a, an actual like currency that is like independent of that, like something like FPI, or did you have something else in mind?
Uh, yeah, I think FPI is definitely a possibility, but um, it's for me it's such a huge and difficult problem because you're basically trying to build a product with a stable and certified yield forever. But uh, I think if it works, it definitely can be that thing I was talking about, like this new killer stablecoin product.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed,
no, I
agreed.
feel that.
Yeah, if we could create like, one thing everybody says, no one just holds Fracks. But with FPI, there's a very clear reason to hold FPI, and I think that's what we kind of need to focus on is like, what are some other major use cases? But Seba, I wanted to ask you, like, what more do you wish to see from the Fracks team themselves? So it sounds like, protocol partnerships, anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that DAOs have something like a competitive advantage against non-DAOs. Uh, Basically, because of the some of the things that we talked about, because anyone can come in to build for them. So I think that openness is a huge advantage that any DAO can have, and that's something I will like to see more on Frax. I know, Dave, you've been working on this for a long time, but I think it's very difficult to come to right now come and build for Frax because some things like the documentation or all the contracts, all the information, how this thing works, aren't easily available, aren't easy to understand, and uh, decentralized governance and building community is also a huge and very difficult problem by itself. So asking this for the core team is a lot also because we all know that they're busy with all the stuff they are building. But uh, I would like to see like a more some more like a specialized group or focusing on, okay, how do we attract all the most intelligent people that currently are in the blockchain space or the economics space, and how do we attract them and make them want to come to build for Frax. And that's
Yeah.
something I think, yeah, it's very important if we want to for Frax to continue
Yeah.
growing and grow bigger than any other stablecoin.
And honestly, like that's what's happening now between like this podcast and like you mentioned, like, creating content, whether it's, content for retail to understand the basics of not just Frax, not just stablecoins, but like how money works in general and how to like understand and comprehend money. And like one thing that we're working on, me, Kit, you, and like a bunch of other people in the Frax community that we're getting together is Fraxmas, which is basically going to be the marketing and education arm of the Frax ecosystem. Because you're right, the Sam and the team are heads down building, they're heads down shipping. They don't have they're putting all their energy towards that, and they don't really have time to do that. And right, it's funny, you see the best like that we have right now is screenshots of Sam, which are I think super powerful. They are like, I like, people like give it shit, but I think it's great because like it's just coming straight from the source. It's not like you're planning an announcement ahead and like, or like this or that. It's like, no, like the leaks are just like steadily flowing, and like that it's coming, and then it's just like shipped and like, oh my god, it's here. But like in terms, it's like Frax is like the problem with Frax right now. It's like, it's not Frax's fault. It's just really hard to comprehend and understand. Like most people, if they hear this conversation, they're like, what the hell is going on? Like there's so much like context and so much like not just like definitions, but like definitions to the definitions that you need like background on in order to understand Frax. And so I think like the goal with Frax is to like be like the first like one-stop source for like all of that, and just like give people, like whether they're retail or institutions themselves, because like institutions are like, this is stablecoins are like a super new concept, and the information you have to think about, like the information that they're getting is from like news sources that don't understand crypto, and they're just like spreading FUD. And like when they hear stablecoins, and especially algorithmic stablecoins with what happened to Luna, they just get like panicked and go away. So like Fraxmas is basically an answer to that FUD, and like a resource for people that actually like want to learn to like come and learn about Frax. And I think like the biggest advantage that Frax has like right now and so far is like everyone that I've met in the community, whether it's online or like at conferences or at meetups, like everybody's long-term aligned, and like they found Frax because they did like either deep research or they just like stumbled upon it, and they looked into it like, oh wait, this is like, there's actually like something here. There's actually like novel primitives and like true innovation being built here, and they stick around. And whether they're just like community members or like or they end up being contributors, like they stay around. And I feel like it's not I feel like some of the best mind share and the smartest people in crypto are like in the Frax community, but it's just like a matter of, is like firing up and utilizing them, and like kind of like giving them a path to contribute to Frax in a meaningful way, like carving that path ahead and doing stuff like this podcast and doing stuff like building these like dashboards, and like all these stuff is going to get formalized eventually. It's going to be like easy to onboard people to become contributors of Frax, but it will take time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say that I really like current Frax marketing style of Sam leaking the alpha through Telegram.
Oh, it's great. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you see those pics on Twitter, something big is coming.
Yeah. Dude, honestly, that's when I get like the most engagement. It's just like, this is like the Twitter hack I thought of. It's just like screenshot. That's it. And then it just like proliferates to crypto Twitter.
Yeah, there are too many threads currently.
There's too many threadors, but like, yeah. Yeah. So I guess like leading on that, like Frax team, heads down, always shipping, always be shipping. ABS. But what do you think of Frax's new products coming out? There's a lot in the pipeline, whether it's like release or what's about to be released, or like what's leaked in the chat. So we have FPI, which we talked about earlier, Frax Swap, which is the TWAM, Frax Lend, which is from what I hear, term sheet lending, And then we have Frax Stake, which is like kind of like similar to Lido. And then we have probably like the most exciting part. Well, that's not the most exciting, but like one of like the thing that's been talked about the most, the Frax base pool on Curve, which I think like establishes kind of this confederation between Curve, Convex, and Frax. So like, let's get into it. Like, what do you think of like each one so far?
Yeah. Okay. So the Frax Space Pool, I think that's an incredible idea because, as Sam has mentioned it several times, currently Frax is sponsoring DAI and USDT liquidity,
Hmm.
which means that it is paying for, I don't know, 200, 100, 200 millions dollars in DAI, and I do not have any problem with Maker. Just like, actually, I think that if we could somehow partner with Maker in other stuff or make them join this baseball, but I think that resources are very limited, and we shouldn't be paying for demand for other stable coins if there isn't like a very solid partnership or idea of why are we paying for this liquidity. And I also think that it acting as a baseball is also very beneficial for Frax, because one thing I've seen, like the space maybe growing to, or some thoughts I've had of how it may go, is like there are these other protocols that act like fintech or maybe new innovations, maybe something like Alchemix, which provide these self-repaying loans, and their current system to have enough liquidity to being able to supply these loans through curves, through curve rewards and incentives. So I was thinking, like, if we try to partner with all these projects, all these innovations that are coming through, we could use them, or and they could use us both to our and their benefit, because uh, for example, Alchemix supplies rewards only for uh, itself, by itself supplies the rewards. But if they partner with Frax, they know that they will have Frax support. And like Sam says, we are looking to make every dollar, every Frax that you sponsor, make it worth so more than every dollar. So I think that the Frax baseball is a very big opportunity to continue building these partnerships and making these positive sum games, but positive sum partnership with other protocols. Uh, okay, so more do we have the FBI? Like I mentioned, I'm very expectant to see how the FBI is going to turn out. Like I mentioned, I think it's a very and huge problem to solve. And well, if it was solved at all, I think I'd be incredibly amazed. I think definitely
Hmm.
it will could be considered like just a new primitive, a new completely different product to everything we have seen at the moment in both in DeFi and traditional finance. Let's see the Frax Lend. I also think that lending is a huge opportunity, and very specifically under collateralized loans are a problem that has been existed forever in DeFi. So I think that if it if it ended up working, I think it will be huge for Frax. It could completely change how uh, stablecoins grow, how they do their business. So I think that I'm really bullish towards Frax Swap, and how I really hope it does work okay. I'm sorry, Fraxland. I was talking about Fraxland.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see, Frax stake. Um, I don't know. I have thought some time about how Ethereum could be like the base layer for economic activity, and I think it can go really well in hand with the SPI, because through staking Ethereum, you are basically just buying an asset that may be uh, growing value over time, but also it's supplying you with additional rewards. So I think that there is a lot of potential between Frax staking and the FBI to go hand in hand and support each other.
Yeah, I
And now
never
we
thought of
have
that.
Frax.
That's a really good point. But
Yeah,
yeah, Frax swap.
yeah. I haven't given much thought to Frax
Right.
swap yet. It's a lot of I because I do not
Hmm.
understand pretty much how these T-WAMs work. So I think that I would like to maybe look at more into that before I have some
Yep.
like opinion.
Yeah. So like Frax swap, for you and the viewers at home that are not familiar with it, it's a TWAM. It's a time weighted average market maker. So like how they had like a TWAP, for like oracles on AMMs. This is a TWAM, and it's best to think of this as an AMM for large orders. And it fills out in order. Let's say you go from like Frax to FXS or like Frax to FPI in your DAO, you can do it over a long period of time with the lowest amount of slippage. And so it's really interesting. It's the first of its kind. It was actually, if you want to learn more about it, it was written about in a paradigm paper in the summer of 2021, and Frax Swap is the first of its kind to be released. So this basically allows for like DAOs and like on-chain institutions to make large trades without occurring like the slippage that you usually would on like a standard AMM or a DEX. What
Yeah,
do you think,
that's
Kate?
I I mean, clearly, like the Frax team is always be shipping, and
Always
as
be
you
shipping
shipping,
ABS.
you know, ABS, as you keep on doing all the shipping, like I can't help but wonder, like Seb, I want to get your take on this. Is like, what does success look like for Frax coming with this like massive suite of products to you?
Yeah, to me, of all the products we just mentioned, and like the general or the global overview of stablecoins, to me, a great success for Frax in the following year will be for Frax Lend to work and to grow, to have millions or hundreds of millions, maybe billions, billions in loans. I mean, if that ended up happening, I think that it will be a huge success for Frax and a huge change in the stablecoin industry.
Yeah, I think the name of the game is just to have as much debt denominated in Frax as possible. Like that's how like Frax circulation grows and expands in market cap. And like for Frax, like the name, like the end goals become the global settlement layer. And like the way to get there is just to have like not just debt like on chain from like DAOs or whatnot, but like I'm really like bullish on the and really excited about real world assets. And like once like that gets mature enough over time where you could like basically like use your house as collateral and get a loan from Fraxland or like maybe like a layer on top of it. Cause I'm sure like these things are going to get formalized over time. Like
Mhm.
that's going to be super powerful.
Agreed, agreed. I think like if history has taught us anything, like every economic growth really starts through credit. And I really like what you said, Dave, about having Frax as like the de facto denominated like debt currency. I think that that'd be huge. And then on top of that, like I mentioned this in the chat with the other Fraximalist group, but like USDC can win the pie of like being the on and off ramp between crypto. and fiat, but Frax could be like the number one DeFi stablecoin. And I
Yeah.
think if it's reserved for just DAO to DAO transactions, I think that will be even a massive, massive market just by itself.
Yeah. It's like each of these stable coins like kind of populate a different sphere of crypto. Like Tether established itself as like the centralized stable coin for like big exchanges like Bitfinex and Binance. USDC is like the most comfortable on-off ramp, which is fine. And then but Frax has this opportunity to take like the on-chain world, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
mark. My favorite stat is like there's like $57 trillion of total addressable market here, and like I don't know, like circulating stablecoins is like 100 billion. We're not even 0.0001% of the way there. I don't even think we're at like 0.00001% of the way there. It's like unimaginable, like how the potential in this, and like with like what when it gets like done right, like where it could go. It's like it's absurd. What do you think, Seba?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we have a huge, and like you said, it's a huge addressable market, but also a huge and very difficult problem to grow these stable coins to these, I don't know, not even decentralized stable coins. Any stable coin that lives on the blockchain, it's very hard to build. Like, can you even imagine USDC getting to 1 trillion? That will be insane. And they have a lot of yeah. I mean, not talking about like I don't know, an authoritarian point of view, but just like how difficult and big and hard of a problem would be to grow to have such a big market cap.
$1 trillion,
Yeah.
1,000 billions. Like that's so. It's hard for like people to comprehend that. Like wow. Seba, I was gonna ask next. Is there like a Frax project you're working on? You think like that you need help with, or do you see like an area of? I guess we touched on this before, but like an area of the community that needs like the most help, like where you can see like where do you think like people could like contribute, or like where do you need help?
Yeah, so personally, we are working on some more dashboards, more information beyond just what is on Dune, and I hope that we can make that more available and open source it to the community so everyone can begin contributing to it soon, and that it's also going to be released soon to the public. But right now, I think there's a lot of things to build on Dune. I haven't had too much time to build there, but there are a lot of more information that can be retrieved and presented there. For example, the Frax Swap exchange has had some activity, so we can begin building this a Dune dashboard for Frax Swap and see how things are going over there. So if you want to, I don't know, build on Dune, help Frax, learn how to use Dune, you can obviously contact me. Maybe we can come with something up to do that. Also, there is, like I said, Kiet and Dave are building this Fraxima, the FXM community. So if you also want to help in any other things, you can contact them, can contact me. There are more research groups that we can link you up to. So there are a lot of things to do. And if you want to begin building for Frax right now, I think the best way to focus on Dune. There is still a lot of information to show there. So if you want to try something there, you are free, just more than free to contact me.
Perfect.
Calling
And
all
speaking
Dune
of that,
Raiders.
yeah,
Yeah.
Dune Raiders, dude, I like that. But Seba, how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of active on Telegram. If you message me, I may take my time to respond, but usually I usually do. My username is Seba_TLDR, or you can find me on maybe on the Telegram, the Frax group. If you don't forget the name, kind of less active there these days, but I still look at it from time to time.
Sweet.
Because there's something else I forgot. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Cool.
we always like to kind of end these podcasts with like a round of like lightning questions. So I have like two or three in my mind that I'd love to ask you, Seba. And so I'm gonna start first. The first question is, what was your virgin crypto experience? How did you first touch the chain?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was around, I think, 2017 when a friend talked to me about Ethereum, and I think during that time it was beginning to pump, so I kind of just bought in and didn't I didn't do much research. Um, and then I think I held it just in a centralized exchange for some time. But oh no, actually during that time it was the ICO boom. So was when I first began using the blockchain investing and being very naive that all this.
What's your most regrettable ICO that you participated in, or like token you bought during that era?
Fortunately, I got out of all of them. Yeah,
No
I
regrets.
did not hold
Okay.
any gas. Yeah,
No
I
regrets.
did not move everything to Ethereum. Yeah, did not hold anything at all.
No Dentacoin?
No, no.
Okay, and this is going to be a completely off-topic question. Do you drink coffee or tea?
I drink both. Yeah. Lately, I've been drinking a lot more tea than coffee.
Got it. And
Nice.
the last question for
Yeah.
me, what do you do when you are away from the computer?
What do you do? So I'm going a lot to the gym recently because I've been spending a lot of time
Hell yeah. Let's
yeah,
go.
spending a lot of time in front of the computer. So I got to get out to release some tension. I like doing weightlifting, not too much cardio. Sometimes I used to go do hiking here near some hills, yes, to some hills here near my house. And also I like reading a lot. I really like sci-fi.
Ooh,
Cool.
nice. Honestly, like like Frax has like a very strong weightlifting history. Like, Sam was a not a power lifter in college. I've been like lifting weights for like the past 14 years of my life. So like that it makes complete sense. And like it's actually very fitting that you've been going to the gym and hitting the weights. And one last
Yep.
question for you. Do you have any alpha leak about Frax to close? Like, is there like a special place you get yield or something like that? Like, what is your alpha leak? Your Frax alpha leak?
Oof, my Frax Alpha League. Let me think a minute.
If you make it to the end of this podcast, you get the alpha leak.
Yes, exactly.
So I do not have many things for yield farming because I try to stay kind of away from the chain or yield farming after the Terra incident. But my Frax Alpha League is that there is no reason to fear the same happening for Frax because it does have a lot of money, more money and funds that people think it has, and what the information actually is showing. And so Frax is safe for a lot of time. It's going to be safe for a lot of time more.
You heard it from Seba. You heard the man that observes and lives on chain. Frax is safe, and you can sleep comfy at night, and I know I do. And Seba, with that, like, thank you so much for joining us on the first ever Flywheel Podcast. We keep it rolling on the Flywheel Podcast. This is the first one, so it would be greatly appreciated if you could like, subscribe. We need to get to that 100 followers on YouTube to get our own custom channel. So please, come support us. We're going to be coming out with a lot more episodes, a lot more great content. We're going to have people from the Fracks community. We're going to have core devs on. Hell, I'm going to, of course, get Sam on. And, hell, maybe we'll get critics on. I would love to, hear some other side of the story. And, we have, a lot in store in terms of not just Flywheel, but Frax Media in general. So it's super exciting. And, Seba, thanks for coming on. Kiet, this has been, dope, for us finally getting to do this.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. That was an awesome first podcast of Flywheel. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers, so smash that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at Flywheelpod. And, follow your boy, DeFi Dave, at Dave Said That _ on Twitter. And we got capital K in the building too, at 0x capital K _ capital K. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. Yeah. First episode of many. The fun is yet to come. And, stay tuned for more.